What's up? Happy Monday. A lot of change has happened over the last several months. The Black Lives Matter movement has fueled a lot, and we're seeing a lot of changes in branding for a lot of companies. And now we're seeing it in the sports world with several sports teams. And the most notable one that has been really a big topic of discussion in this conversation has been the Washington Redskins, at least in my observation. There's been attempts many times to get this team name changed. They've had this name for over 80 years. And the people who created the logo for the team were actually Native American. And so now the Redskins have decided collectively that they're no longer going to keep the name. They're going to retire the name. And so now that's calling into question a lot of other notable sports teams, the Cleveland Indians, Atlanta Braves, Kansas City Chiefs, and several other teams, and the Florida Seminoles, Florida State Seminoles. It's calling into question a lot of other sports teams that have either Native American team names, logos, or kind of like traditions or practices that they do during games. Like the Atlanta Braves and the Kansas City Chiefs have the tomahawk chop. They do that in all of their games, and there is some negative symbolism associated with that. And I understand the argument behind removing that kind of stuff. But what I fear has happened is that white people, in an attempt to make things better between themselves and the black community, and then themselves and Native Americans and other groups of people that may have been stereotyped or been oppressed, or if there had been some racial tension, and in order to alleviate that, I think we've tried to make changes that we felt like was going to benefit the relationship between the two. But to me, I feel like we have to let these groups of people decide what is offensive and what isn't, what's racist and what's not. And I think if you asked a lot of Native Americans, they would say that a lot of these team names are in remembrance of these tribes. Now, the name Redskins, I understand the controversy. It's literally its own dictionary-defined word as a slur used against Native Americans, and I get that, but it's also its own tribe as well. So I understand the argument on both sides, but I fear that we're not letting these groups of people make the decisions. We're just saying, oh, it's bad. Let's make the decision for them because we think it's going to make it better. And in reality, I feel like that makes things worse. Like if you remember the talk about the Aunt Jemima branding change and removing the woman as the logo, as the face of that brand, it kind of got under the skin of black Americans, understandably so. You're kind of removing what was a successful figure in a black woman during her time period. And I think white people feel the need to make things better, and they think by changing stuff that sounds offensive to them or looks offensive to them, it may not be offensive to black Americans or to Native Americans. It may not be. We have to let them make the decisions. We can't make those decisions. It's not our decision to make. Because at the end of the day, we're not the group that is represented by those logos, by those names, and by those practices. We're not. And I fear that's kind of what's happened over the last couple of months. White people in power who have the ability to make these decisions are saying, let's do this because it's the right thing to do, and it may not always be the right thing to do. I can't sit here and say that the name Redskins is offensive because I'm not a Native American. I don't know. So I'm not going to say I disagree with the name change, and I'm not saying I agree with any name changes. I'm saying we have to do what's right for Native Americans. Not what we think is right, but what is right for them, what they think is right. It's their decision to make. They're the groups being represented. Period, point blank.